Hello runners, my name is Peter John. I hold a Master of Science degree in exercise physiology, and I'm also a PhD candidate currently studying biomedical sciences with a focus on skeletal muscle physiology. I've been an avid runner now for some time, and really an avid chronic exerciser in a variety of different modalities and forms of exercise over the better half of the last decade or so. So the topic of today's video is why I often recommend using time instead of miles as the main volume variable for your running. You've probably seen various running protocols and programs online, some of which dictate to go out and run for a set period of time at a given intensity. So for example, go out and run easy pace for 45 minutes. Alternatively, you'll see go out and run easy pace for 6 miles. First of all, how do we really define volume as it relates to running? When you think of volume, you should really look at it as total work performed. And your physiology doesn't know how many miles you've run. What your physiology does respond to is doing something at a given intensity for a prolonged period of time. So if I go out and run at an easy pace and my heart rate is 140 beats per minute, and I'm doing this for 1 hour, 60 minutes, well, the physiological stimulus is doing that work for that period of time. It's not whether I got 6 miles in that period of time or 7. I still stressed my cardiovascular system and my muscular system at that given intensity for that period of time. Most beginning runners and intermediate runners get very caught up in total mileage in a given week. And in their idea, they cannot progress unless they're accruing a certain amount of X mileage, whether that be 50 miles per week, 70 miles per week, 100 miles per week. Now the problem with this, and the problem with thinking of volume only in this context, is that a lot of times a beginner runner and even an intermediate runner simply is not going to run fast enough at easier intensities to accrue a large amount of weekly volume. For example, if you have a beginner runner and their easy pace is a 10.5 minute mile or an 11-minute mile, some maybe even 12-minute mile, I don't know. For them to acquire 50 miles of weekly volume with, say, roughly 75 to 80% of their volume being in that easy zone, they would be running for hours and hours and hours each day, all week long. Why not just take the mileage out of the equation temporarily and just look at it from a perspective of time? So, of course, I'm going to go out Monday, I'm going to run at an easy pace, whatever that is for that individual. It may be, again, an 11-minute mile. And I'm going to do this for 45 minutes, or I'm going to do this for 1 hour or 30 minutes. And if you are performing that activity at the given intensity zone that puts your heart rate or your physiology in that realm, whether it be aerobic conditioning or whether it be working on a lactate threshold and so forth, you're going to get that physiological stimulus and you're going to get that physiological adaptation over time. That's just how it works. Doesn't matter if it took if you went 5 miles or 10 miles, if you did it for a designated period of time at a given intensity, that's really your volume. That's what elicits the physiological response. That's what allows you to adapt and over time improve. So this leads me to my next point, which is actually sometimes you can look at total weekly mileage as not the prescriptive variable, in other words, not the thing that you should be following and doing, but rather as a measure or a proxy of your improvement, of your adaptation as a runner. So what do I mean by that? If I tell or if I prescribe to a beginner or an intermediate runner to run at an easy pace Monday, Wednesday, Friday for 30, 45, and 60 minutes respectively. And as I said, their pace is a set amount, 10.5 minutes per mile or 10 minutes per mile. Okay, they go out and they run the easy pace, and I instruct them that if they are able to increase this pace and maintain heart rate or maintain comfort, often we talk about the talk test when you're running, so able to comfortably carry on a conversation during that easy pace, then what will happen is their total weekly miles over many weeks is going to increase as a consequence of their improvements, of their aerobic fitness increasing. So again, in this way, you can actually look at total weekly mileage as a proxy of improvement, as a variable, an outcome variable, rather than the prescriptive variable. And I think that that's actually a very important distinction to be made. But if you told a beginner who can only really sustain an aerobic pace at 11 minutes per mile to go out and do 100 miles, it would take them, they would probably have to be running at that pace as long as they're awake. So it's not reasonable. And there's nothing magical about the 100 miles per week. The 100 miles per week is a side effect. It's an outcome of their fitness improving to such an extent that they're able to sustain pretty quick paces while still being within their aerobic zones and still being relatively easy for them. Not slow, not a slow pace, an easier pace for them. And to wrap this up, I often prescribe and recommend that beginner and even intermediate runners, occasionally upper, look more so towards their total time running at set intensities over the week instead of looking specifically at, I have to acquire a certain amount of miles per week. Thanks a lot for watching, and stay tuned for more videos related to running, running performance, and periodization.